What's up, gang? Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mershazday. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now listen, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to today's episode of The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mershazday, and boy, do we have special guests. My man, Anson Whitmer is in the house. What's up, Anson?
All right.
Dude, I kind of fucked up on your name. Jesus, Darius, get your shit together. Oh, man. How's it going, man? Happy Friday.
Doing great. You?
Oh, I'm living the dream, baby. I'm doing really, really well, man. So if you're listening to this, it's the Friday before Labor Day when we're filming, but it won't be Friday when you're listening to it. Man, do you mind if I do a little bit of housekeeping and then we're gonna hop right into the show?
Yeah, go for it.
Perfect. So, hey, listen, if you are a listener and you are new to the Greatness Machine, we are about two things: people living their passions and those creating greatness and doing so despite the odds. My man Anson here is another sort of passion or greatness. So, Anson and I, we were connected through a former guest and one of my homies, Doug the Duggar Irwin. He's a staple in the Reno startup scene, and he knows me like he's like my brother from another mother. And he's like, man, he made an introduction, and he knows that I'm like kind of I've become a podcast snob. I won't. My friends are like, know that I won't let people on the show anymore. And so he's like, and I'm going to say this. I was really busy when he was hitting me up. So I was like, I didn't confirm quickly. And you don't know this, Anson, but Duggar hit me up probably 5 times for you to get on the show. Yeah. He was really relentless about it. And I was just and I was like, I was totally like, if he refers somebody to me, I'm going to say yes. No matter what, but I was just busy, and I don't think he knew either way, but he was very relentless, and I was like, man, the Duggar really wants Anson on the show, so here you are, my friend.
Shout out, Doug. Awesome.
And if you want to enjoy a good show, go listen to the Duggar shows, because those are great shows. We talk about like hippie chicks and Trump. It's so fun. Anyway, so the big thing that got me interested was, Anson's doing a lot of work around mental health for men. And I'm going to give your formal bio really quickly here. And then I'd love it if you here at the Greatness Machine, we love origin stories. I'd love if you could kind of dive into that for us. But man, you're kind of a stud, Anson. You're a PhD in neuroscience, the postdoc from Stanford, founding team member and formerly the head of data science at Calm, the app, as you guys will probably be aware of. And you are now the founder of Mental app. Mental, which is an app around mental health for men. So, man, so pumped to be here to talk to you about a couple things I love, mental health for men and performance and us being our best selves. And I know that you're doing a lot of work around that. And I love the fact that you're doing it kind of with the mind of a data scientist, because I think a lot of the times when we start talking about this stuff, it gets a little squishy. People are like thinking, it's a little like, oh, like how are you feeling? And what's your, it tends to be kind of a soft subject. And I think that the data is really important, because we got some stuff going on in this world that I think that, we got to fix. Man, I'd love if you wouldn't mind kind of giving our audience a little bit of your origin story, and we'll start with that if you don't mind.
Yeah. A lot of ways what I'm doing at Mental is a culmination of my career's work to date. Started back when I was 19. My uncle, who'd been living with me, we actually shared a bedroom. He killed himself. And I realized he didn't resonate with a lot of the different approaches out there to help with mental health. And this motivated me to get my PhD in neuroscience. I wanted to understand why people like my uncle couldn't let go of their childhood and how that ultimately could lead to depression and suicide. Some years later, while I was out at Stanford doing research, got a call from my cousin, other side of the family. He left a message, and I didn't get back to him in time. A few days later, he killed himself as well. And only in retrospect did I realize, listening to that message, how much of a call for help it was. A week later, I was at his funeral, kind of dreary suburban Minnesota street, and a group of people, 30 or 40, marched by holding up signs, and they were trying to raise awareness about the suicide crisis that's going on in this country. And what was just wild and surreal is that none of them knew my cousin, and none of us knew them. We just all knew in that moment that we have not done enough in this country to tackle this crisis. And so that's kind of why I ended up leaving academia. It's just too slow. We're not making enough progress. We've made tremendous strides understanding the causes of mental illness, but so little to scale up its solutions. And so that is what motivated me to go over to Calm, because I knew the power of meditation as a tool to help people. And at that point in time, so few people were doing it. And I knew if we could remove that kind of hippy dippy nature to it, make it more commercial, we could scale it up. And we did. Millions of more people into meditation, and millions more know that it's a tool that's there for them, even if they're not currently using it. The problem was, though, at Calm, so few guys were using that part of the product. They weren't getting the help. And if you look at the whole mental health space and the app space, that's just generally true. There's one report showing that there's 10 to 20,000 mental health apps out there, and they basically are all built for women. Even the general use apps like Calm, if you really look at the messaging, the tools, it's pretty clear why the dominant demographic of Calm is a middle-aged woman. And the issue is that men are 80% of suicides in this country. So if we don't figure out a way to get through to guys, we're never going to resolve this crisis. So when I left, took a sabbatical after Calm got to a $2 billion valuation, started talking with my co-founder, who's the founding engineer at Calm. And we said, hey, no one's doing anything in this space, which is a little bit mind-blowing and actually does make for a good business opportunity, but really mission-wise, it's so critical that we start finding ways to get through to guys if we're actually going to make a difference here. And so that's what kicked off Mental about a year ago.
Love it, man. Yeah, I tried. So I tried Calm, and I don't know, man. Sexy Australian dude's voice just didn't get me going. You know,
that Harry Styles bedtime story didn't work for you.
I swear, I was like, God, I fucking hate this guy's voice. It felt like this, like some dude playing the bongos when I was in college, like on an island. I'm like, this is a guy I would have like wanted to beat up. Like, I don't want to hear. And so I did try it, but I didn't like it. So I used to, I'd love to, if we could kind of talk a little bit about this. Well, I want to make more jokes about meditation, and then we'll go into the data. So I used to joke. So as I mentioned earlier, that we know each other through Doug Irwin, who's a good friend of mine, and so when he and I, Doug, were in a EO forum. Formerly EO, we're now Rogue, but it's a men's group essentially of CEOs, entrepreneurs. We've been together in the same group for 17 years this fall, and which is rare, to get that type of support as and for anyone. So it's a gift, really, to do life with people like that. And so I got lucky, got into this group, support group. It was meant to be support from a business standpoint. It has totally morphed into this like thing where we're just supporting each other through life. And I got introduced to meditation through that, mostly from Doug, really. And I remember I used to the joke to that group and to anyone that would listen. I'd say, man, there's two things in this world that I hate: meditation and hiking. And I don't know which one I hate, which is kind of funny, right? Because hiking is kind of like meditation in nature, right? And so I absolutely. I hated it. Like I didn't understand it. I would say I'm bad at meditation, which is a funny thing to say once you learn how to meditate. It's like, it doesn't even make it actually doesn't make sense, right? Yeah. But I was this, I thought you had to be good at it. Oh, you got to clear your mind. I'm not good at clearing my mind. And I just sit here and my mind's racing the whole time, and I'm supposed to focus on my fucking breath, and like this is boring the shit out of me, and I'm 4 minutes in, I'm counting the seconds for it to be over, and I absolutely hated it. And so that was, I would say, my first couple years experience with meditation was. Oh, you stuck with it? No. It was just no. I didn't stick with it at all. Actually, I tried it. And then people would be like, "Let's do a quick meditation before our meeting." Like the men's group I'm in, and I'd sit there for 3 minutes, and I would want to shoot myself for all 3 minutes. And so it was just a really I wasn't good at it, right? At least that was my perspective, which is again. now
Yeah,
being
it's
where I'm
common.
at is it's a funny perspective to have, right? And what ended up happening to me was kind of the thing you're talking about. I was out there looking at all these different, modalities and apps, and this is like right when smartphones were getting big, so that some of the apps started getting big. But what changed it for me was I had a massive crisis, and one of the other guys in the group said, man, why don't you just, and he could hear it, man. I was spiraling hard and I was just hardcore anxiety. I had a major business thing that went down. This is about 4 years ago. Yeah, this is March of 19. So again, at this point, I'm 5-6 years into trying it, not been successful at it. I've struggled with a lot of mental health in my life, with depression and anxiety to this point. I mean, it's been a major problem for me. And I hit this wall because this major thing happens in my business that causes a lot of anxiety and stress. And my friend said, why don't you just meditate, man? And one of my attempts that had been maybe 2 years prior was Doug had said, hey, you should check out the Waking Up app, Sam Harris's app.
Yep.
And I tried, and he had it was like a 50 meditation day, like training, right? And I made it to day like 2, and then I turned it off, right? But I was desperate. I was super desperate. So I went back at that moment, and that was my first, and I started actually meditating, and it actually started working. It at least helped, right? And the reason, and so I guess for me, like, kind of going back to what you said a moment ago, my question for you is I just felt like it was hippy dippy and bullshit, and I'm bad at it. And then I just realized there's no such thing as being bad at it. And the one thing I liked about Sam Harris, which I've since moved on from there, is it seemed like he was doing it with like a kind of like a logic, like it was kind of geared more towards men, right? It was more logical. It was not hippy dippy. It was around explaining what you're doing and why you're doing it. It was a guided meditation, which was helpful. But I'd love to, that resonated for me enough to get me into it. And I've now, from those 4 years, I mean, I think I've meditated 260 times this year so far.
Wow.
And I average 25 minutes a day, and at least when I do it, and I do it without a guided meditation now. So I'd love to hear, like, why is it that, you've got into this, obviously you have some really strong personal reasons to getting into this world, but what does the data say? Why is it that men are not doing the things that maybe women are doing to help with their mental health, and how are you guys trying to change that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. I mean, even if you just look at meditation, one of the kind of issues that you see about it is just, it's really abstract, right? It's like, hey, sit here, focus on your breath, and then you're going to just start feeling great. And you're like, wait, what? How is that exactly supposed to help me? And so people do that and they go, is this actually helping me? I'm focusing on my breath. Am I doing this right? And it's hard to know. And it's hard to see that path there. And that is a key difference with guys, is that they often, when they have problems, instead of reflecting and just becoming aware, they want to take actions. They want to solve problems. And so the meditation approach is a little bit more on the reflective side. And this is actually, was talking to my wife the other day, and there was something going on with her, and I was like, just started hopping in. I'm like, okay, well, how can we solve this? And giving ideas, etc. And she just stopped me and she was like, Anson, I just want you to say, I hear you, and I'm sorry for what you're going through.
You're like, that's too emotional.
Yeah. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Sorry. I hear you, babe. I'm sorry for what you're going through. And she's like, thank you. I feel better now. And for guys, though, it's like, if I started telling a friend about what I'm going through and they're like, I hear you, I'm sorry for you, Anson, I'd be like, that's all you got? I'm trying to fix something. Here, help me fix it. And if guys kind of like jump in and they're like, oh, why don't we try this or that? And if a guy's trying to help you solve a problem with you, you feel seen that way. We all still want to be seen, but that's how we feel seen. But you go into something like meditation and it's just focus on the feelings. And it's a little bit abstract, and we need to find ways to make this more concrete, where it feels more action oriented. Like our mental app, we still get guys to get present in the moment, but our modality we use is a cold shower. This is how we teach guys with different types of mental tools, because when you are in cold water, you have to be present. You don't have a choice. And I've seen that. I was really motivated by cold water some years ago. I did a couple 2-minute sits in 38-degree water, and I just let myself be fine with it and be present with it. And it felt like an hour of meditation. And by what I mean by that, and what people often miss with meditation, am I doing it right or not, is like when it does hit you, you are so fully present in the moment, and you realize that in the present moment, almost all the time, they're okay. Even if you're in some pain, like you hurt your leg or something like that, if you stay in the present moment, you don't have all these meta thoughts about like, oh, if my leg's hurt, how am I going to play basketball or whatever? If you just stay in that moment, things are fine. So it's kind of the cold water brings you into that moment, and you can kind of work on these tools in that cold water where you're like, so it feels action oriented way to like incorporate them as one of your tools. So that next time you get kind of those stress hormones going, they start to pop up and you find ways to come back into the moment or reframe that stress in a different sort of way.
I love that, man. And I think it's interesting because the way I've kind of viewed this as I've learned more about it and practiced it more and more. I practice a lot. It's a daily practice for me now. And is that I started viewing it as a muscle, right? So like I do squats and I get my legs stronger. I do deadlifts and I get my lower back stronger. I do, bench press and I get my chest stronger. I'm like, I do meditation, I get my brain stronger. I get my mind stronger. And it's just, and what I've learned is that creates a lot more resilience for me to handle these situations that are just really hard, right? Like, because we have dude, the mind is a complicated motherfucking thing, right? And like and the more you start to play with it, the more you start to like see that I'm my biggest liar to myself, and I create these stories, and then those stories have triggers, and these certain triggers create the stories, and they go both ways. And when those happen, stress hormones happen, and then I get all freaked out, and and I start spiraling, and you start to look at it mathematically. You're like, dude, this is a really gnarly equation that it has 100 different formats. And for me, I was like, wow, I'm complicated. And I need some way to short circuit when I start going into these directions. And the biggest short circuit I have is just to building up this capacity. And again, I just viewed it, the minute I started thinking of it as this is a muscle I have, and the stronger I get it, instead of me reacting in a split second and then looking back and seeing red and realizing that I'm like pummeling myself, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that thing pisses me off. Maybe I should maybe take a split second to think about it. So that's where for me, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that is that kind of how you guys view this? Because I've made it that simplistic, and it got really easy once I made it that simplistic.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that. I think a lot of guys look up to those dudes in the movies who are just badass, who could remain cool under pressure. Like the guy from a Quentin Tarantino movie who's about to be shot. And instead of being scared, he's like, let me tell you a story about something that's totally unrelated, and all circles around at the end to insult the guy who's about to shoot him, and then he gets shot. And we're like, wow, that guy was so cool. And we think that that's just like, oh, I can naturally be that way. And I think a lot of us have this belief that, hey, as I age, I'll just have a stronger mindset. I'll be more wise. I'll be more of a badass just by aging. But the reality is that is not the case. If you don't work on your mindset, if you don't grow your wisdom, you aren't going to grow that way. And we see this in, like, say, our Navy SEAL is a teacher of our like cold shower protocol. They aren't naturally that way, but what they do is they put themselves in situations of stress over and over so that they get used to those stress hormones. They know how to operate under them. They learn all these different types of mental tools so that they could reflexively use them when they're in stressful situations. That's why a Navy SEAL told me recently that one of the guys on SEAL Team 6 that was going to take down Osama fell asleep on the helicopter while they're in Pakistan because he was just able to kind of control his mind, because he's done so much training about how to deal with stress. And so like when we push people in the cold shower, when you go into cold, you have stress hormones, adrenaline, noradrenaline, they start pumping through you. And if you start using these tools in that kind of moment, they become reflexively your tools. Every time stress hormones kick up, do you start using these tools? It's like, do you calm your breathing? Do you relax your body? Do you reframe the stress in a way that's going to be helpful for you? Or do you go down a path of negative self-talk? And it's really critical that you're training these kind of things. It shows up for me, again, probably bad to keep bringing my wife into this, but she was giving me some crap for not loading the dishwasher the other night. And I got all annoyed about it. I'm so busy, so much going on with work. I don't have time to load the dishwasher perfectly. Went to the bathroom and I found myself just reflexively changing my breathing, relaxing my body. And then once I did that, it was suddenly easy to change my self-talk. And I was like, hey, you're being a little silly, Anson. And I came out of the bathroom in a different mood. And it wasn't that my wife was looking to fight about anything, so I didn't ruin the evening. And this is the kind of thing you get if you actually start training daily your mental muscle to handle stress in a different way. If you train yourself to get out of that negative self-talk and just come back into the moment and realize, hey, in the moment, everything's actually pretty good.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. I think like you're going there. This, and again, I think the stronger you make the muscle, and this is just how it's what got me from saying it's the number one thing I hate is, I would say, was meditation. Like I hate meditation. I hate doing it. And I was writing a bio for myself for this new business I'm building right now. And I wrote like transcendental meditator, that's like, I identify with it now because it's such a big part of my life. Right. So like, dude, listen, if there's a freaking guinea pig to show you someone can like go from one end of the spectrum to the other, I mean, I'm pretty far over on the other end of the spectrum. I'm not like doing it like 3 hours a day, like some monk, but like, dude, in a perfect day, I'll meditate an hour a day, and
that's
this
awesome.
is coming from someone that did not meditate and like hated it. And so I view it as having that muscle, to your point, giving yourself that capacity, that resilience, because you have these tools. I just view it as a really important tool. And when you start looking, I have a good friend, Hal Elrod, who wrote the book Miracle Morning, and are you familiar with Hal or his book?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he has this thing called savers, and the number one S in savers is silence, which is essentially meditative practice. And what he did, how he came up with this to support your business and what you're doing, is he said he went and studied what like the most successful people in the world do, right? Yep. And it was like silence was one of their practices. Affirmation was one of their practices. Visualization was one of their practices. Exercise was one of their practices. Reading was one of their practices. And scribing or journaling was one of their practices. So these 6 different practices. And he said, okay, I'm just going to create a practice where you do all 6 of them. So, I mean, no joke, literally an hour before our show, I did my 25-minute meditation, and then I ran through all his savers and did my Miracle Morning. And then I've added other stuff to it too. But it's like, it's a recentering. And I just, again, go back to, hey, look, there's a lot of guys out there that are listening to this where I'm like, hey man, if I told you don't do deadlifts and squats and eat your protein and watch your diet, you'd be like, I'm not doing that, Darius. But if I said, hey, don't, you need to meditate, that same guy might be like, why the fuck would I do that? It's like, it'd be and my viewpoint is you're better off doing the meditation than doing the other stuff. Yeah. I want to take a step back. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just love that because, when I've talked about my founder story with suicide, is that people sometimes ask, oh, is your app for guys who are in a crisis state or suicidal? And I don't think apps are for anyone who's in a crisis state. You really need hands-on help in that kind of situation. But also, more importantly, it's the wrong time to try to connect with people. Where we're really trying to connect with guys is when they're okay or even doing better, and start teaching them these tools. Because as you just said, if you look at men who are great, who are doing amazing things, the best athletes, the best entrepreneurs, etc., they all work on their mind a ton. They realize the power of this. For most of them, it's a daily practice. So if we get guys who are okay, or maybe even doing a little better than that, to realize the power of these tools, we're not trying to necessarily pull them away from a depressed state to an okay state. What we're trying to do is take you from an okay or pretty good state to greatness, to the next level. And that's what these tools, I think, really are capable of.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So I want to I have some stuff to say on that, but I wanted to take a step back because you got me so excited to tell my story, and just because I feel like this again, we're talking about something that's near and dear to my heart. Like I mentioned a moment ago, I identify as a meditator now, and so when you were in school, were you like, was it about studying the mind? And again, I know you have some crazy degrees around neuroscience and around data. But was it with the intention of going into technology and solving these problems, or was it just around an inquisitiveness as to what happened to your family and trying to understand it better? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, my goal was to go into a professorship when I set out, even at the beginning of my postdoc. So I hadn't decided to go into tech. I just became a little disillusioned with academia. And yeah, my research was focused on rumination, or how we just get stuck dwelling on the same thing, whether it's something we're angry about or something we're sad about, and how some people really struggle to let that go, and how that can lead to depression, anxiety, PTSD. Also, part of that is women are a little bit more prone to that, and men are prone to doing the opposite, which is distracting, not paying attention. And that's why men are so much more likely to fall into substance abuse and workaholism and different things when they're struggling emotionally, because they don't want to see it. And so they block even themselves from seeing it by a lot of distraction. But that also leads to all kinds of problems. It's a little bit less likely to lead to kind of classical symptoms of depression, such as sadness and loss of pleasure, but it's more likely to lead to kind of a male form of depression, which is very underdiagnosed. And actually, a lot of clinical psychologists aren't even that aware of male depression, but it is where you're more irritable or angry, and that's kind of popping out, or you're doing risky things and substance abuse. They're really big signs, and underneath it, you're depressed. And that's like you with depression. When I say anger, for a lot of men, anger is a funnel emotion. Irritability and anger, it's something it's safe for men to express in society because it is masculine and it won't be disrespected. So a lot of men will express their emotions just that one way, and sadness and these other kind of emotions are actually hidden behind it. So a lot of men will actually find out that a lot of this anger is because they're depressed or they're really sad. And once they kind of open themselves up to what's behind that, they're actually then able to make progress on improving their lives and feeling better.
Oh, I love that, man. It makes sense, right? And I mean, I feel like we are, I think we're opening into this world right now, and, where, number one, I think like the use of psychedelics is kind of back in vogue, right? Which some people listening to this might be like, I'm not doing that, and that's a personal choice. But I think that I think that's more of a symptom of this. The bigger picture, what we're talking about here, is that people are trying to understand their mind better, and there has been this is way more in the zeitgeist now than ever before. We're talking about you have these technologies and apps, and I saw a thing on Facebook where they were doing like ketamine like subscriptions.
Yeah.
Like, that looks fun.
Yeah, wait, I think I need that.
Yeah, I don't feel good. I need to turn on some house music and go see my therapist. But Darius, are you in a K-hole? No, not at all.
Working on my mental health.
Yeah, I'm building my resilience. But I do think that it's obviously out there right now, and I think that it's that we're seeing that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's us Gen Xers coming of age, right? Where we, I'm gonna speak for myself at this point, where I grew up with two men in my life who were depressed dudes, and one of them used, alcohol to like numb himself. The other one was just an asshole. And my dad, I didn't have like two gay dads. It's my grandfather and my dad. And so that was like my like role model for like dealing with life. It was not good. It was like pretty poor actually, right? My mom, by the way, is LCSW. So my mom's like a clinical social worker with a master's in social work. So I grew up with on one side of totally interesting. And my parents were like, married. So I had one dude that was totally out of touch with his emotions. And then my mom, who's like a hardcore therapist. Right.
Yeah.
And so I got to kind of see both. But I think that it's just now becoming maybe more normalized for men to be able to show their emotions. And I see that there's kind of men who are embracing this, and then there's this almost backlash, right? That I'm seeing where it's like, I don't know, where I guess the best way of describing it is if you're looking on social media, there's just like, we need, have you ever seen the meme? It's like, tough men create greatness, and greatness creates soft men, which creates bad times, which creates, hard men that create good times, right? And so whenever I've seen that meme, I totally butchered the meme right now, but whenever I've seen that, and I know a lot of people out there pushing that, like, who have that mindset, this like almost autocratic mindset around, people are soft these days, and look, there probably is some truth to like the toxicity of, you're being violent. I'm like, why? Because it says something you don't like. It's like, come on, like that's kind of taking it to an extreme where we're watching everyone's feelings too much. But on the other side of the spectrum is like, hey, you're not allowed to show emotion because which shows weakness, which there's too much weakness in the world. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love that. It's so key to what we're about too, is we talk about it a lot. There's like one side of the spectrum we call the better eat your veggies side, which is telling men, hey, go to therapy, be emotionally vulnerable. And those are research proven to improve you and help you, but they don't connect with a lot of guys. And if you don't connect with guys, you're not going to help them. The reason I think in some ways that they don't connect is it often gets tied up in the conversation around toxic masculinity, which is not always intended this way, but I think is often heard as masculinity is generally just toxic, and that it's a push, hey, men, be less masculine, be androgynous. And men are pretty resistant to that. Interestingly, if you look at masculinity, there's femininity and masculinity, and women seem to embrace both femininity and masculinity, which kind of makes sense if you see masculinity as powerful. And so women are embracing that more powerful side. But men only embrace masculinity, not femininity at all. So some of that push kind of feels like pushing men towards the feminine side, which they don't want. So they reject. It's not helpful. The other side is, hey, men, just be more like John Wayne. Go back to being a cowboy. And the problem with that is that we don't live in an environment where the fastest draw with a 6-shooter is the one who survives and thrives anymore. I think back in the time, our great-grandparents' age, out on the high plains, not showing emotions, being stoic, and just being a mean son of a bitch is like, that probably did help you survive in those hard times. But modern times, they have really changed. We have very different lifestyles now. If you want to thrive in modern society, you need to be able to collaborate. Collaborate requires emotional intelligence. Modern society is where we sit all the time. We have screens in front of us all day long. If you don't figure out a way to upgrade and update your mind to be able to handle these types of modern pressures, well, you are going to become a lonely person. You are going to be perpetually distracted, which will lead you to being an anxious and depressed sort of person. You need to find ways to work on your mind to be able to stay emotionally healthy in modern age. And there is a reason why we've seen mental illness spike since 2009, 2010. Suicide is at an all-time high right now. Even post-pandemic, rates are getting worse. It's because modern pressures are very different. So if we continue going about our life thinking that we could live like we did in the past and do well, we're just sorely mistaken. So really, like mental, we really believe in the third way, which is how do we kind of not make it all about emotional vulnerability? How do we actually embrace masculinity and be that masculinity is a good thing? But that doesn't mean we're going back to the cowboy times where that masculinity means, hey, I can't show emotions. Like there is a balance point there that is really healthy for all of us.
Yeah, it's interesting what you just said. Do you follow Ryan Holiday at all?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I've been like devouring Ryan Holiday's books this year. I've read like 5 of them, and Dave Goggins, right?
Goggins
Can't hurt me. So I said this is my year of don't be a bitch. But it's kind of funny, right? Like you're talking to someone that literally has read both the Goggins book and 5 Ryan Holiday books this year. And like, I love this stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a friend about this and they're like, yeah, it's kind of us. Actually, we were talking about the show. I was talking to Moby on our show and we were talking about stoicism. And he's like, yeah, it's weird. Like Stoicism has like a 3,000 year resurgence. You know, it's popular 3,000 years ago. It's super popular right now. Obviously, guys like Ryan Holiday pushing it, but I find myself like reading it and it's motivating me. And so I'd love to hear like what your thoughts are on how can you incorporate the two? Because I think there's some really great wisdom to be had around maybe the way, Epicurus or, Marcus Aurelius think about life, right? These are great people. And when I read it, I go, yeah, like there's something to be said around doing hard things, or if we're going to talk Dave Goggins, like pushing through your inner bitch and like getting stuff done, but doing it in a healthy way, because I'm coming from a place of love when I do it now. And I'm pushing myself harder than I ever pushed myself before. I mean, you should see my practices. It's like, it's like the laundry list of like what you should do if you want to I'm like cold plunge, workout, meditate, like checklist, right? It's a lot of hard stuff I'm doing consistently with the intentions of doing harder things, but coming from a place of love with great mental wellness. How do you kind of reconcile both of those?
Yeah, no, I love this. And, one of my problems with the common narrative that we hear around therapy and emotional vulnerability is that those are tremendously powerful tools, research-based. They will help you if you use them, but they're helpful for certain types of problems, and there's a lot of other tools out there. And what I like about Stoicism, for men in particular, is it doesn't start with emotions. It's not really like, hey, how are you feeling? Be more vulnerable. In a lot of ways, there's a toughness to Stoicism. I love like one of the lessons, which is having someone in your life, maybe it's your child, and I do this with my children, where I look at them and go, you may die unexpectedly. I might just lose you. It could be tomorrow. It could be today. And when that happens, the intensity of love that I could feel for my kid when I appreciate that. And there's a real toughness to have that mentality, to not avoid death. And Stoicism is incredible that way. So it could really lead to a shift in your mental perspective, change your self-talk without necessarily starting with emotions. And that's how you connect with guys. And Goggins, I love Goggins, but we also have this saying in the company, we always are joking around saying, never go full Goggins.
No. It's like, I even think he doesn't go full Goggins, right? It's an alter ego for him.
It's gotta be, or something. He's really struggling to get through to something happened to him.
No, have you read his newest book?
I've read the first one. I've yet to read the second one. It's on my list.
Read the second one, because what you realize is it's an alter ego that he's created to help him like push through life. But dude, the guy's got some real the guy's got gnarly issues, right? Like there's no way you do that to yourself. Like if you I'm like, dude, you're running on broken legs, dude. Like I don't care. Like I get it. Like you're a badass, but like I'm like at some point like it's just an extreme, right?
And that's why you never go full Goggins. You don't need to run 4,000 miles on broken legs to prove yourself.
You don't think you do 5,000 pull-ups in a day? That's not helpful?
It's so aspirational, though. If like guys are aiming in that direction and see it, then hopefully they're getting off the couch and run a couple miles and trying to do a few pull-ups, Dude, I'm good 20% Goggins. 20% Goggins is like that's a nice dose, right? Because it's like that's
enough
a great dose.
I'm a solid 20% Goggins, and like I might creep up to 25 every now and again. But if I start dipping below that, I feel like I'm not doing enough. So
sometimes I need that voice in my head. Like bench pressing. Goggins comes in, I push so hard that I feel like my head's going to pop off. It's like, you want that Goggins voice there now and then. You just don't want it there all the time.
Yeah, exactly. That's so funny. Gosh. So, it's tough to be men, and so I want to take a step back to your days at Calm. So you end up leaving academia. That's not an uncommon thing in this world now. That's a tough place to be. People go there obviously with the right intentions, and they kind of see the bureaucracy of it, but you're highly educated. How did you decide to, go and become one of the, founding members of Calm and to kind of do that work over there?
Yeah, I actually started meditating when I was 18. It's been on and off my whole life. Done silent retreats. Really seen the power of it. I also knew the power of it through research. to prevent the onset of mental illness if you're doing it, to increase joy of life. But also, if you do happen to fall through the cracks and you are getting into crisis state, it could also help you get back on your feet. So I knew its potential, but at that point in time, most people saw it as something done on college campuses or maybe at Burning Man. So even our first investors, I was there before our Series A, and some investors balked at investing in us because they thought it was too niche. Not enough people would do it. And I knew that if we could just kind of change that discourse a little bit and we could open up to more people, they would see the power of it. And so it was really cool over the years, making tremendous strides there. Our head of UA, I would often tell her, I think you've gotten more people to meditate than any single person in history.
Yeah.
So it was an exciting period.
That's pretty cool. And so why did you end up deciding to leave? Was it just like seeing that there's a gap in the market, or you kind of ran its course? What was like the kind of motivation for you to look into a different direction?
Yeah, good question. There was a few things going on, but we definitely, around that point in time, a lot of the early people all kind of left. And I think it's because the company had shot up and it started being, there was awareness that we had a couple of years until we reached an IPO, and it wasn't quite the startup life anymore where you could have the same kind of impact in the same way. And I saw that there's all these other potential problems out there. And I was like, this is actually an amazing time to go out there and start something up on my own. So got excited to step back. And I didn't jump into something because I really don't think you should. Your first idea is rarely the best idea. And really what I did is gave myself a few months to just really not think about anything in particular, but just let my mind explore and wander, and able to really figure out what was right for me. It is kind of weird particularly when you have success, a lot of new opportunities start popping up and you could start just running around trying to exploit those opportunities, grabbing all the fruit off the trees. But often that's not really what your 80-year-old self wants you to do. They want you to step back and go, you have this short life. What is it that you want out of it? Make sure that you're seeing that bigger picture. So the next thing you do isn't about just seizing those easy to achieve rewards, and instead going after the thing that really is meaningful to you and having a big impact and changing culture here. That is the thing to me.
That's awesome, man. So you left there, in 2021? Is that correct?
Exactly. Yep.
And
2 years ago.
So what did you notice? Like, did you notice? I just have one more question about Calm, and then I want to go to the new business and really, talk a little bit about that. Did you guys notice any major trends during COVID with the Calm app?
Oh wow! Yeah, there's a huge spike in usage of Calm and mental health in general. That was silver lining of the pandemic, is that it tremendously changed cultural conversation around mental health. It became a lot more normal for people to talk about it, way more normal for people, including men, to talk about getting help and the importance of getting help when you're going through something hard. And more people became aware that if they don't work on their mindset on a daily basis, that they will struggle. And so I think a lot more people started incorporating mental workouts into their daily routines in ways that we just did not see pre-2020.
How much, when you say spike, like how much did the usage of the app increase during the time? Do you recall?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not quite sure. I remember exactly, but it was a pretty notable increase.
Interesting. And so in moving over to mental, outside of, when you start thinking about this business at scale, right? It's about a year old, a little bit over a year old. You guys raised money for it. Is that right?
Yeah, we raised money last fall, and then we launched the app only 6 months ago.
Okay, so you guys have just launched. It's early days. When you start looking at like what's your goal with this as far as what does this turn into when you think of like coming from a Calm where you were there as first 10 and founding members, you left when it was at scale, you start looking at this business, what would you hope to achieve with this business? Like, who's the perfect person to come and, try it out? Give us some thoughts around that.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now, the app really has two different sides to it. One side is really, it's more content based, like this cold shower protocol, which is kind of like Huberman protocols productized and made easy for you. Daily mindset shift and perspective. That's all done with humor. That side of the app really is about increasing your stress threshold, your capacity to handle stress. The other side of the app is using AI coaching with large language models. In tech, we're building over those models to help you solve the things that are causing you stress, to solve your stressors. And I think just the content part of that app, the daily nudge bit, is similar to Calm and has this potential by itself to be a $1 billion business with sightlines for 10 billion as you move into payer and B2B. The AI coaching, I really tremendously believe that we are going to see a massive disruption of the therapy space. Some people are always going to want to see therapists in person, and they always will have a role. They won't be replaced, but there's a massive shortage of therapists. Most therapists are over 55, so the shortage is going to get worse. Many people can't afford them. They don't have time to go to them. It's hard to find one that understands you, so it could be a hard process. With the AI tech that we have now and that we're building out mental, we believe that a lot of people are going to be able to get help in really deep ways through just this tech. In some ways, it's better than humans because you could say a paragraph about yourself of things you want, and this AI tech can basically translate that into a set of values that you have for life in a way that just a human therapist couldn't do so easily. So I think there's actually some ways where the AI could be better than humans at understanding you and helping you go on a path towards a better life. So
hold on. When you say coach, do you mean, are you guys like creating tech that's like, I go on a screen and there's like a humanoid person talking to me, or is it just like a chatbot talking to you, or both?
Right now, yeah, that part of the app is text where it's a back and forth text conversation, but we will be going to the point where it's just a conversation that you're having with the app where you hear it and you talk back to it.
And so is it visual and audio, or is it just, because I've actually done, I was doing, was it PDTR therapy, like over Zoom with therapists. I did therapy over Zoom for a couple of years during COVID, actually. So is the idea, when you start thinking of the future of like mental health coaching and thinking of an app like yours, is it where literally there's like AI people I'm talking to and we're having a conversation? Or is it like, give me your thoughts on this 5-10 years from now?
Yeah, that's actually, we have, when you come into that, we ask you about legendary men that you aspire to be like. Bruce Lee, Ryan Reynolds are two of our most popular ones. Muhammad Ali's up there. And what we actually do in the coaching is that you can get coached by one of these legends, or just like the Calms or Mentals coach. But it's actually kind of from the perspective of one of these legendary guys where they help you work through a stressor in your life, which to me is amazing because what we talked about earlier is that all of the great men out there, they dealt with a lot of stress and they're really good at dealing with stress. So they are the perfect sort of people to be able to lead you kind of through that and also make you aware that raising your stress tolerance and being good at solving stressors is critical if you want to be great.
So wait, so you're telling me that I can go in there and have a conversation with a AI bot version of Ryan Reynolds and he can, like Van Wilder style, like give me advice?
Yeah. We're about to release, this is going to be out soon, where it's like, hey, I'm just really stressed right now. And there's some days, where you just feel really stressed. Maybe you don't know why, or maybe you do. And you just want to take that down from feeling like a 4 out of 5 on the stress scale. And you just want to take that down to a 3 or a 2. You go in there and talk to Ryan Reynolds or Bruce Lee, and they will talk you down from that high stress level to a stress level that you could tolerate for the rest of your day.
That's you guys got to do The Rock. You should do Dwayne. You definitely got to do Dwayne Johnson. You should do Ari from Jeremy Piven from Entourage. He should be
amazing.
one of your
Yes,
because I think, but he can't yell at you like he would yell at his assistant. That would be incredible. I'm excited. I want to try the app now. That's awesome. What's the? I know we're kind of running short on time here, but what's the when you start looking at like? If the goal here is to give mental health support, is it just so? It sounds like there's a teaching element. It sounds like there's a coaching element. There's also obviously a meditation element. Is that correct? Within the app?
Right now, there's nothing about meditation per se. There are a lot in the cold shower. We are teaching you tools to become mindful, to become present, but there's nothing around sitting down and focus on your breathing for 5 or 10 minutes.
Interesting. Okay. So you guys are you're really taking a totally different approach. I actually totally made the wrong. I've been sitting here for 49 minutes thinking that this was a meditation app. So
yeah, that is just calm for men, and that's actually what you often see in this space is men go or people go, hey, we got to do something for men. Let's just paint it blue. We'll just say it's calm, but now we're going to color it blue and have a male meditation teacher, and it'd be like, you guys like this now, and that doesn't work. We're questioning so many different assumptions about what it means to get through to guys. For example, one of our first hires, I'm sure we're the only mental health app that made this a first hire, was a stand-up comedian. The whole space, if you look at it, it's so serious. And it's understandable because mental health is often a serious issue. And there is a place for a kind of a clinical approach. But to a lot of guys, if you make it serious and it feels like going to church, you already have a hard time bringing them in and you're making it harder. So why don't we start with humor? And in many ways, I believe we're building out what liquid death did for water. I think we're building out the liquid death of the mental health space because we could just be irreverent and funny. I mean, our whole first part of our app is built around men's shit shower and shave routine. The daily deuce, we say instead of doom scrolling during your daily deuce, listen to the daily deuce. It's just 2 minutes of mindset and humor. So I think there's just a lot of ways where we're having fun in the space, and we're bringing mentaltainment, shift your mindset while being entertained to mental health.
I love that, man. So I'll tell you a quick story, and then we'll end with like how people can connect. So about, like I said, 4 years ago, I was going through this really gnarly time in my life, and I was probably, 7 or 8 months into it, and it lasted for about a year. And it was peaking at hardness around 7 or 8 months, like where I was like I was not suicidal, but I was like, I understood for the first time in my life why people killed themselves. I was like, if this is what my life was going to be like, dude, I'd be fucking off myself. This sucks. Like I was just hardcore, like the just gnarly spiraling rumination. I was having day terrors, night, like dreaming about my problems constantly. I couldn't escape it. It was really, really hard. It was one of the hardest times of my life. And so the happy ending of it is obviously it got better. But before that, I was like, dude, I got to figure something out, man. Because this is like I'm afraid to be with myself alone because I get so worked up. I get such bad anxiety. So I started watching stand-up comedy every night. And like before I went to bed. So, because I was like, because I'd go to bed and I'd have like night terrors all night, or I'd sit there and like have nightmares about my shit, right? And so I was like, man, fuck this, And I was like, so I literally watched every single Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock comedy like that I'd grown up on, and that was my nightly routine for an hour. As I would watch stand-up comedy for an hour and laugh till I cried, and then I just go and I was like, dude, I'm just biohacking. So I was so it's really funny, like what you just said reminded me of that. And obviously I kind of admitted some vulnerable shit, but that was my solution. So I have a friend, really good friend of mine. He's like, I kid you not. He's 50, he's late 50s. He's kind of like Andrew Dice Clay. Like legit offensive, says rude shit, like funny as fuck if you like that sort of stuff, which I do. and he's got diagnosed with cancer, and he's in it. And I was like, hey man, I have a little cheat sheet for you. And he's like, what's that? And I don't know if you're an Andrew Schultz fan. I love Andrew Schultz. So I sent him Andrew Schultz hour-long comedy. I'm like, hey, I'm going to send you comedy every single day. And I'm like, just because I'm like, look, he's in it right now, you know? And I'm like, help me when I was in it. So anyway, I think that's really cool that you guys are doing that, because I do think that like men are just wired differently, you know? It's like men are from Mars, women are from Venus, like, everything in between, right?
Yeah, and gallows humor, dark humor, that is a way to get through to a guy who's in a harder place. It really is. It's a great starting point. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I love what you guys are doing. So look, if people want to connect with you guys, connect with you to learn more directly, what are some ways they can get in touch?
You can find we're at getmental.com. We like to tell everyone it's time to get mental, or mental is in both Android and iTunes app stores, or find me on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. Anson, so much gratitude having you here on The Greatness Machine. I'm so excited for all the amazing stuff you're doing in the world. I'm proud of my friend Duggar for knowing that this would be great content for our show and for our listeners. So man, thank you. Lots of gratitude from here at The Greatness Machine.
Yeah, really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, man. Hey, and listen, for listeners, go check out getmental.com. Follow Anson on all the social stuff. We'll put that in the show notes, and support the app. And if you're a guy out there, or you are in a relationship or a friend or a family member of a person that is a man, which there's probably at least a 50% chance of that. Well, maybe less these days because of all the stuff in between. But go ahead and support Get Mental. All right. With that said, peace out, everybody. Love you.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on, so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers. And after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.